Welcome to Stevens Point Fire Department Station 2, where we have Tower 2 here, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. I will be your host, motor pump operator Benjamin Schultz, going through Tower 2. So what makes this fire truck so special? Well, back in the day when they had horse-drawn carriages, each horse could only pull a little bit. So this fire truck can do 5 things. It carries hose, it carries a pump, water, ground ladders, and an aerial ladder. And because of those 5 things, it's called a quint. And what makes it even more special is that it's got a big bucket on top that we call it a tower. Some things we can do with the tower is we can spray water off of it on 2 different sides, and we can also connect a fire hose in the center to enter the building higher up. You might be wondering, why are we doing this tour this way? Some of you have had the luxury of having a fire truck come to your school, and some of you have even come to the fire station to see our fire trucks in person. But unfortunately, we can't make that happen, so we are coming to you virtually wherever you are. Let's go inside the most important seat of the fire truck. Watch your step. As we come inside here, the motor pump operator or driver of the fire truck sits right here. Once you're inside here, we've got all the gauges that look like a regular vehicle. Then we can turn on the aerial power to operate the ladder and the generator, roll up windows here, and then we've got a computer screen here that lets us know how the truck is operating. As we scroll up, we'll see the radio that we can call dispatch and talk to other fire trucks. And as we go to the left, you can see other buttons I can push to turn on the lights, switch the steering wheel to activate the air horn or the siren. Now we're going to go to the back of the fire truck. When you're first hired as a firefighter, this is where you spend the first couple of years as your position as a firefighter. Firefighters ride in back, the driver rides in front, and the officer sits in the front seat. Because firefighters also respond to other calls, not just fire calls, some of the other calls we go to are emergency medical services call or ambulance calls. And that's why we carry this black bag here to help take care of sick people. And we've got this white box here to do compressions if someone does not have a pulse and is not breathing. Now, other things in the back of the fire truck here are battery chargers, box lights to make the rooms bright when the power gets shut off after a fire, air packs that we can sit on like a backpack, and then we got a cabinet here full of extra face masks and batteries and fire detectors, smoke detectors. Should we come across a house that doesn't have any, we can give you some. Over here contains resource books for should we come across bad stuff that spills, elsewise what we call hazardous materials like gasoline or diesel fuel. We can look it up to start figuring out how to take care of that scene. We've got other keys in here to help get us into elevators because sometimes they break and people get trapped in them. We've got gas meters to figure out what kind of gas people are smelling inside their house. We've got a spare radio and all sorts of other spare batteries to run other equipment that we have in the back of the truck that we will look at later. And lastly, we got a camera inside this case to take pictures for our reports to see later what we saw. And one other camera that we have in here, we call it our thermal imaging camera. Over here. As it turns on, this camera here allows us to see through the dark, through the smoke, to see what else is heated, where fire is in the walls, where people might be in the smoke. And if I touch my hand, you can see what's hot and what's not. And when I pull my hand away, you can see where my hand was touching. All right, boys and girls, another thing that makes fire trucks so unique is the way that the seats are. As you notice, our air packs are built into the seat so we can get ready on the way to the fire call. Just because you're in a fire truck, you can't forget your seatbelt. So now that we're seatbelted in our chair, we can still get our air pack on the way to the fire call. And now when I get out of the fire truck, I'll be ready to respond to the fire. All right, everyone. Remember earlier when I talked about this fire truck doing 5 different disciplines? Well, one of it is its pump. When I lift up this door right here, you will see all the different things that the fire pump can touch and do. and spread water to. All the different colors and gauges. So to get water flowing, we got to pull a lever from the water tank and this one here, and then we have water to the pump. From there, we open up different valves that correlate with different color fire hose. So when I pull the yellow lever, water comes out of the yellow fire hose. When I pull the orange lever, water comes out of the orange fire hose. So this next cabinet here is our water rescue cabinet. Both sides of the fire truck have the silver door up here, and they both contain something that has to deal with water rescue. On this side is a life jacket and a rope that we can throw to somebody who's close to shore. On the other side of the fire truck, we've got an ice rescue suit that we can put on that keeps us dry even when the water is freezing cold and there's ice on it. This cabinet contains a lot of our electrical parts. Our breaker panel to turn lights on and off for scenes, so we can have power to the electrical cord sticking outside, so we can run additional power cords. Because when there's a fire, the building loses its electricity. We shut it off to make it safer for fire suppression. So we have to supply our own electricity. And then to blow out the smoke, we've got a fan here. And sometimes fires are small, so we have different size extinguishers for small fires. Our next cabinet, as we continue on down the line of the fire truck, contains spare hose, because sometimes our hoses that are pre-connected aren't long enough, or we need more hoses. So we can make our own fire hose as long as we need to. In the city, we're very fortunate to have fire hydrants, but when we go in the county, we don't have fire hydrants. So then we have this tool here to help us suck water out of ponds, pools, and other sources of water. We've got cones to make our spot on the road safer. We've got tarps here to cover up your belongings in the house should we do a thing called overhaul, and that's when we tear apart walls to look for fire inside the walls. So we can cover up your couch, your tables, your chairs so they stay cleaner. And then in these 5-gallon pails, we have oil dry for car accidents. So when the cars are in an accident and they're leaking fluid, we can put oil dry down so the oil doesn't make the road all slippery. In these little cabinet doors here, there's 8 of them, and each one has an air bottle in it that matches the ones that are in the back of the fire truck or in the seats for the self-contained breathing apparatus, or SCBA. The next cabinet is our wildland cabinet. Not all fires in the city happen in buildings, so we need to have special hose and special suits for fires that happen on grass, like Schmeekley Reserve or along the railroad tracks. So as you can see, this hose is a lot smaller, so we can move it around a lot easier. We've got backpack spray guns that we can fill up with water should we need to put water on the fire that's farther than what the hose can reach. And the last cabinet on this side of the truck contains a lot of parts to help the driver of the fire truck connect hoses together, called adapters. We keep it locked so the doors don't open while we're driving down the road and then get jammed in the track, so we can't open the door. So as you can see, sometimes you have fire hose that comes together with 2 thread ends. So we need to have a female adapter. Sometimes we have 2 female ends come together and we need a male adapter. Then we got flashlight for traffic control. We've got other various tools here to help us cut through windshields, open up foam jugs, close off sprinkler heads that are spraying on us. Bigger adapters for bigger fire hoses. And when we use all those nozzles and we need to make new fire hoses to put out fire, we've got different nozzles here. A cellar nozzle, hand nozzles, wildland fire nozzles, and then the fire tape to secure the scene after the fire has happened to keep people away from the danger. Everything in this bag here is to help get the firefighter out safely. Should he run out of oxygen, there's more oxygen. Should his face mask break, there's another face mask. A battery operated flashlight. There's a bolt cutters. Should he get tangled up in wires, we can start cutting wires apart and get him out of there. So we call this our rapid intervention bag. So as I said, firefighters not only respond to fires and medical calls for sick people, but we also respond to car accidents. So as we come around to the back of the truck here and the other side, you'll see some of our equipment that we use for car accidents. Sometimes when cars get hit, they get put on their sides. And when a car is on its side, it's very tipsy. So we have struts here to help stabilize the car on the ground so it doesn't tip as we try to get the people who are injured out of the car. One of the things that make this fire truck so unique is the amount of ground ladders we have. Every fire truck should have some ground ladders, but to make this a Quint, it needs to have a certain amount of feet of ground ladders. And so we've got 35 feet here, 12 feet here, 14 feet here, and a 24 and a 16 foot right here. Other tools back here are pike poles and a New York hook. These tools we use for salvage and overhaul to pull down ceilings to look for fire that's up above us. And we use these brooms to sweep up oil dry from the car accidents. This door here operates the tower. It puts out outriggers so it's real stable so we can use the ladder safely. This cabinet here allows us to connect the fire truck to the fire hydrant. We carry 900 feet of hose back here and another 50 feet on the other side of the fire truck here to connect to the hydrant. And then to help us connect to the hydrant, we carry a bag of tools. And when we open up the hydrant, we've got to put other valves on it because once the hydrant is open, when we want to attach other fire hose, we can't shut the fire hydrant down. We got to open up the fire hydrant and some other wrenches to help us with the big hose at the fire hydrant. To get to the ladder way up on top that can reach up 100 feet above the ground, it all starts with this ladder right here that's folded into the body of the fire truck. We unfold it, it secures there, and we climb up into it. And now we're up here, and now we can climb to the top of the fire truck, wherever it's at. So remember when I said we talked about going on car accidents? Well, this cabinet here contains most of our equipment for car accidents. At the very bottom here, should someone be squished by the car, these inflate so we can lift the car off of them. Or maybe they're trapped by a machine or pinched between a dumpster and a wall. We can slide this in there and then inflate the bags, and we can push whatever off. Up to 20 tons. How about that? 10 elephants we can lift with those two bags. So these are the boxes to control those airbags. Now with those struts on the other side of the truck, we need straps to strap them in place to help secure them. Should someone have the dash of their car on them, on their lap, we need to push the dash off. So now we can push the dash off of them. Some other extrication equipment. This is our spreaders. We can also crimp metal. And here we have our cutters. So we can cut apart the car to get the person out. And what makes these tools so unique is that they all run by a battery. Impressive. So as we look underneath the frame of the fire truck, every space is utilized. These big square pads go underneath the stabilizers to help hold the fire truck more solid on the ground. Remember when I was talking about the electrical cabinet? Well, when I flip those switches, now I get power to this here. And if you notice, it doesn't look like a normal house outlet. It's because this carries a lot more amps. So it's got to have a special connector. Here's another one of those silver squares that contain an air bottle. And this here is the last cabinet with car extrication and tools of that such. We can show you what one does. So we put it underneath the car to stabilize it. So now the car won't rock back and forth as we get the person out of it. More traditional looking firefighting tools, right? We got ourselves a small pike pole here with it. We call it a D handle because it's got a D handle. We got really big bolt cutters here. A Halligan. A sledgehammer for breaking through concrete. And more traditional looking fire axes here. And in this bag here, we've got drills and a battery operated reciprocating saw. The last big cabinet on the back side of the fire truck here contains more traditional looking firefighting tools. A chainsaw for cutting holes in the roof, a special saw called a K12 saw for cutting holes in metal roofs, opening up garage doors. And then we got some more fire hose here that we carry into the building should we have to go up a couple of stories and use the standpipe system. Remember the silver door on the other side that contained water rescue stuff like the life jacket? Well, this side is where that yellow bag is kept, that Ice Mustang suit. And sometimes, boys and girls, believe it or not, the fire truck beats the ambulance to the scene of car accidents. So here we have a longboard to help put sick people and injured people on before the ambulance comes. And over here, this is the opposite side of where the pump panel is, where all those collars were with valves and gauges. This is the other side. So the water can come in, and sometimes I've got to pump water to other fire trucks, so water comes out. And here's that last little bit of 50 foot of fire hose I was talking about. And over here is another fire extinguisher called a pump can. All right, everyone, this brings us to the last seat of the fire truck. This is where the officer sits. The officer is the boss of the fire truck. So as we come over to the seat here, as you can see, he's got a computer there. So on that computer screen, he can pull up the blueprints of the building so we know where the exits are, where the furnace room is, where the electrical panel is, where the gas comes into the building, where the electrical connection is to the building. He also has access to the keys right here, and that there is the key to the city. Most city buildings have a special box on the outside called a Knox box, and on that keychain is a key to that box. So we can open up that box and then have keys to the building, so we don't have to break down the doors. Also, what the fire officer has here are more books and maps of the city, so he can help figure out where everything is to better assist him at the fire scene. That concludes our fire truck tour of Tower 2 at Stevens Point Fire Station 2. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something about how many tools and everything that this truck has to carry, because we never know what we're going to come across at the fire scene or any other emergency. So boys and girls, people sometimes ask, well, how tall is the ladder? Well, it reaches 100 feet above the ground, but that's when it's extended fully up and it really doesn't reach out very far. Other questions we get about the fire truck is, how many gallons of water does it hold? Well, this fire truck holds about as much as 2 bathtubs, 325 gallons of water. Other questions that we've gotten about the fire truck is, how big is the fire pump? Well, this particular fire truck is one of the largest fire pumps you can put inside a fire truck, 2,000 gallons per minute. Now, some of you might be wondering, why do we have such a small water tank then if we can pump so much water? Well, most of our water comes from city hydrants, which, thankful to them, is almost a boundless, endless supply of water. So we only use the tank on board for quick knockdowns on the fire. And then we try to establish a more permanent water supply from the hydrant. And if we don't have hydrants, well, then we can use other fire hoses that we showed you on the fire truck here tour to suck water from the draft tank, from lakes, from ponds and pools. Other popular questions I've got have been, how fast does the fire truck go? This fire truck governs out at 67 miles per hour. We can't go any faster than that. Another question I get is, do I like driving this fire truck? And I love driving this fire truck a lot. It stops really fast. It might be slow to take off, but it stops really fast, which is real important when people pull out in front of you. Is how many people are in this fire truck? At one time, at most we keep 3. Sometimes if there's a bad storm, we'll put 4. but most of the time there's only two, the driver and officer. And then the other fire apparatus that's here, the ambulance, that one carries the other additional 2 paramedic firefighters. So when we show up on scene, hopefully we've got 4 personnel. So boys and girls, when you call 911, first you talk to a dispatch center, Portage County Communications, and then they tell us where your fire is. And so we've got a goal of 2 minutes from the time you call to we're out the door. So that's going to the map, looking where you are, that's getting dressed in our fire gear, and getting out the door to figure out everything we have to do. We shoot for under 2 minutes. And we've got timers on the walls that let us know as we're approaching 2 minutes.